In the Silver Dragon Castle kitchen, Leon is up to something intriguing. Let's find out what it is. The maids dutifully bring the items he requested, their movements precise and efficient. One of them, addressing him as Lord Prince, politely informs him that all the herbs he asked for have been delivered. Acknowledging her words with a nod, Leon gestures toward a specific spot on the table. Place everything there, he instructs. The maids comply and, after arranging the ingredients as directed, quietly exit the room. With a subtle, knowing smile, Leon muses to himself that he intentionally requested extra herbs to keep the maids from guessing his true intentions. Turning his attention to the herbs, Leon examines them closely. He notes that the medicinal materials needed to prepare Dragon Great Force are fairly common, and at first glance, the refining process seems straightforward. Yet, as he recalls the text from the ancient manual, he frowns. The manual emphasizes that even the most skilled pharmacists of the Dragon Clan struggle with a low success rate when concocting Dragon Great Force. Undeterred, Leon sets to work. He meticulously recites the steps from memory. First, grind and mix the required herbs, then add them to the pot in a precise sequence and bring the mixture to a boil. His movements are methodical, his focus unwavering as he works tirelessly for several hours. But as time passes, frustration begins to mount. Finally, Leon throws his head back and lets out a loud, anguished scream. "It failed again!" he exclaims, his voice echoing through the kitchen. Staring at the ruined concoction before him, his shoulders sag. "I followed the instructions from the book perfectly," he mutters under his breath, his gaze fixed on the charred remnants of his latest attempt. "Every time, I get to the final step, drug purification and separation, and it all falls apart." Leon presses on, refusing to let frustration take hold. He mutters to himself that the high-temperature separation method described in the book is a delicate balancing act. Too high a temperature destroys the drug, while too low a temperature fails to purify it. Shaking the drug jar in his hand, he grumbles that achieving the precise separation effect manually is nearly impossible without professional instruments. As he continues, Leon remembers his master's words. If one way doesn't work, look for another. Inspired, he begins to consider alternative methods for separating the medicinal residue. Suddenly, the sky outside roars with thunder, a reminder of the storm brewing overhead. Glancing up, Leon notices the dark, turbulent clouds and comments, "Looks like it's gonna rain soon." Rising to close the windows, he pauses, captivated by the echo of thunder rumbling through the air. The sound stirs something in his memory. As Leon ponders the concepts of lightning and thunder, his thoughts take a sharp turn. His eyes widen as a memory surfaces. His teacher once mentioned, during an alchemy lesson, that electrolysis of impurities could sometimes yield better results than fire-based methods. Energized by this revelation, Leon feels a spark of inspiration ignite within him. He wonders if the thunder element could be harnessed for separation, a method that isn't mentioned in the manual. With his mind racing, he resolves to test this unconventional theory. Determined, Leon reminds himself that lightning magic has always been his forte. Though his magical powers are still recovering after the forbidden technique he used on Rossweiss, he believes the small portion he has regained will suffice for the precision required. Setting aside the traditional method, he decides to use his lightning magic to refine the Dragon Great Force. Carefully, Leon channels the faint but steady flow of lightning energy within him, guiding it to interact with the concoction. Sparks crackle faintly in the air as he meticulously manipulates the separation process. His concentration is absolute, his movements calculated and precise. Half an hour later, Leon steps back, his breath catching as he gazes at the result. A triumphant smile breaks across his face. It worked. He succeeded. The storm outside rages on, but within the castle kitchen, Leon has found a breakthrough. Holding the finished Dragon Force in his hand, Leon finally feels a wave of accomplishment wash over him. Smiling to himself, He places the medicine in a small box and remarks quietly, "The Dragon Clan's medicine is surprisingly simple to make." Just then, Muan, his adorable daughter, bursts into the kitchen. Her wide eyes immediately spot the small, chocolate-like rounded object in Leon's hand. Curious, she tilts her head and asks, "Dad, what are you making?" Leon glances at her, momentarily distracted. Casually, he replies, "It's something good." But as her sweet voice registers more clearly, Leon pauses, staring at Muan in silence as his thoughts race. Muan, undeterred, looks up at him with bright enthusiasm, clearly expecting more of an explanation. Realizing her presence fully, Leon snaps out of his reverie. "Muan!" he exclaims, surprised. Quickly closing the box, he pats her on the head, flashing her a reassuring smile. "It's nothing, really." Muan's curiosity isn't so easily brushed aside. "Is it candy?" she asks, her eyes flicking to the box in his hand. Leon chuckles and shakes his head. Showing her the closed box, he says, "It's not candy, it's medicine. Something I made for your mom." Muan's cheerful expression shifts into concern. "Medicine? Why does Mom need medicine? Is she sick?" she asks, her voice tinged with worry. Placing the box into his pocket, Leon kneels to her level and pats her head again. "No, no," he reassures her gently. "Your mom's just been very busy lately. I thought I'd make something to help nourish her. Don't worry, okay?" Internally, however, Leon smirks at his own deception, thinking, "Actually, this is for me. I'll need it to recover properly." Muan seems satisfied for the moment, but still looks at him earnestly. "Dad, you have to take good care of Mom, okay?" Leon smiles warmly at her. "Of course," he replies. "That's what a dad should do." But inwardly, his thoughts take a mischievous turn, his dark expression concealed behind his calm demeanor. "Once I've fully recovered, I'll definitely take very good care of her," he muses, a quiet chuckle escaping him. Stormy night with heavy rain and loud thunderstorms, Leon sits in his bedroom, absently tossing the medicine box in his hand. Though he successfully cultivated the Dragon Great Force, he can't help but question whether the Dragon Clan's nutritional supplements might have adverse effects on humans. Catching the box midair, Leon frowns and mutters to himself that he'll have to set it aside for now. Rossweiss is surprised, almost incredulous, that Leon managed to create medicine in such a simple environment. Looking at him with her usual air of superiority, she extends her hand and, in an arrogant tone, demands, "What did you refine?" "Let me see it." Leon hesitates, his grip tightening on the medicine box. Meeting her gaze, he sighs and reluctantly hands it over. "Even if I refused, you'd just resort to violence and take it anyway," he mutters, a trace of exasperation in his voice. Rossweiss takes the box, examining its contents. A faint smile graces her lips as she looks at the Dragon Great Force. "Impressive," she says. "You've managed to refine such a perfect Dragon Great Force under these conditions." "Truly remarkable, Leon." "What's that saying? The man of letters and the man of arms?" Leon blinks, surprised. Internally, he marvels. She didn't mock me this time? Closing the box with a click, Rossweiss hands it back to him. "You can keep this," she says firmly, "but you can't take it." Leon catches the box, confusion etched across his face. "Why not?" he asks. Rossweiss locks eyes with him, her gaze steady. "As a tonic for the dragon race, the medicine is far too potent for a human body," she explains. Leon frowns, his expression darkening. "Is it really that powerful?" he asks, skepticism creeping into his voice. Her serious tone doesn't waver. "Yes, it is. As a human, you cannot withstand its effects," she reminds him, her voice softening slightly. But Leon's pride flares. Pulling the Dragon Great Force from the box, he smirks arrogantly. "I've defeated countless dragon kings without the power of a dragon," he boasts. "Why would I fear a single pill?" Rossweiss's eyes widen in alarm as Leon forcefully swallows the pill. With a defiant grin, he declares, "Courage is the hymn of mankind." "Leon!" Rossweiss shouts, her voice laced with concern. But the effects of the pill are immediate and devastating. A surge of power floods Leon's body, his senses heightening to dangerous levels, He clenches his chest, agony twisting his features as he collapses to his knees. "You reckless idiot," Rossweiss yells, anger and worry blending in her voice. "Do you know how rarely I use healing magic?" She rushes to him, casting a spell to stabilize him. "Let me try to break down the pill's effects," she says urgently. Leon, however, shakes his head, his darkened expression filled with determination. Gritting his teeth, he grabs her hand, stopping her mid-spell. "Leon, don't move!" Rossweiss pleads, her voice rising in alarm. But it's too late. Thunder and lightning erupt from Leon's body, engulfing him completely. Bearing the searing pain, Leon grits his teeth and manages to speak through the storm of energy. "Rossweiss," he growls, his voice steady despite the agony. "Look carefully." He meets her gaze, his eyes burning with resolve. This is the courage and determination of mankind. Despite her protests, Leon endures the excruciating effects of the Dragon Great Force alone, his body crackling with raw power. The storm intensifies around him, and Rossweiss can only watch, stunned and helpless, as Leon endures the excruciating power alone. Thunder roars, and lightning dances wildly in the small space, illuminating Leon's figure in bursts of light. His screams echo through the room as the pain reaches its peak. Having pushed Rossweiss away earlier, she is unable to help him now. Shocked, she watches in awe and horror, her mind racing. Then, it dawns on her. Leon is using lightning magic on his own body. Rossweiss stares in disbelief, trying to comprehend what Leon is doing. After what feels like an eternity, Leon finally stops channeling his lightning magic. The raging storm around him begins to subside, and the room grows eerily quiet. His eyes lose focus, and unable to bear the strain any longer, Leon collapses. "Leon!" Rossweiss cries, rushing to his side. Her voice is filled with genuine worry as she catches him just before he hits the ground. Gently, she lowers him into a sleeping position, brushing stray strands of hair from his face. Looking at his unconscious form, Rossweiss mutters under her breath, "You really are a madman." Despite her exasperation, there's a softness in her voice that betrays her concern. Standing, she glances at him once more and says firmly, "Wait here. I'll get the court physician." She turns to leave but freezes mid-step as she hears a faint sound behind her. "Rossweiss," Leon's hoarse voice calls out weakly. She spins around in shock. Leon's eyes flutter open, his face flushed a deep red, and a strange, dazed expression settles on his features. Just as she's about to ask him how he's feeling, he raises his hand toward her, startling her. Before Rossweiss can react, Leon's hand darts out and grabs her tail. "What?" she gasps, caught completely off guard. Still holding her tail, Leon smiles, a goofy, childlike grin. Rossweiss stares at him, utterly baffled. "How on earth are you even awake?" she demands, her voice filled with both confusion and embarrassment. Leon sits up suddenly, his movements clumsy but determined. Blushing furiously, he rubs his cheek against her tail, a soft giggle escaping his lips. "My wife." "Where are you going?" he murmurs, his voice hazy and affectionate. Rossweiss's face turns scarlet. Wife? Who do you think you're calling your wife?" she stammers, trying to maintain her composure. She attempts to pull away, but Leon's grip on her tail tightens. "Let go of my tail, you idiot," she demands, her voice cracking under the mix of frustration and embarrassment. Leon, however, refuses to comply. His smile widens and he rubs his cheek against her tail again, sighing contentedly. "I don't want to," he says softly. "I won't let go. I won't let my wife go." Leon happily presses his cheek to Rossweiss's tail, his grip firm and unyielding. Despite her earlier struggles, it becomes clear she can't overpower him in his current state. Rossweiss exhales in frustration and stops resisting, her patience wearing thin. Meanwhile, Leon continues gleefully, singing an improvised "wife, wife" song as he rubs his cheek against her tail like a delighted child. Rossweiss's face twists into an expression of pure exasperation. She makes a long face, silently admitting her defeat. Turning her gaze away, Rossweiss begins to piece together the situation. The dragon's great force is meant to enhance physical strength and endurance, she thinks. It shouldn't cause unconsciousness, or whatever this ridiculous behavior is. Her mind drifts to Leon's earlier use of lightning magic. She wonders if his manipulation of the lightning element might have interfered with or intensified the effects of the medicine. When she glances back at him, her cheeks flush as she takes in the sight of Leon, humming happily with his face buried in her tail. "Idiot," she mutters under her breath, her voice tinged with embarrassment. Still, she reassures herself that despite his bizarre behavior, he doesn't seem to be in any immediate danger. Leon continues his antics, unabated, cheerfully singing his "Wife, Wife" song. Rossweiss sighs deeply, realizing there's no reasoning with him in this state. Resigning herself to the situation, she looks down at him and says, "All right, I'm here. What's wrong? Just tell me already." Leon stops singing and looks up at her with a bright, flushed expression. His eyes shine with childlike excitement, and he boldly calls her "wife" again. Then, without hesitation, Leon smiles mischievously and declares, "I want a second child." Rossweiss's face flushes a deep red, and she stumbles over her thoughts, the shock of Leon's sudden declaration sending a chill down her spine. Struggling to keep her composure, she glares at him, her blush intensifying. "You haven't even properly taken care of the 2 children from my first pregnancy," she snaps, crossing her arms. "And now you're already asking for another one? Forget it." But Leon is undeterred. Still gripping her tail like a stubborn child, he rolls around on the bed, his voice filled with exaggerated whines. "I want a second child," he insists, his tone almost pleading. "Come on, Rossweiss, is it really such a bad idea?" Rossweiss groans, pinching the bridge of her nose in frustration. What did I do to deserve this, she wonders, weighing her options. Reluctantly, she realizes that trying to reason with him might only make the situation worse. Finally, she exhales a long sigh and mutters, "Fine. Not just a second child. We'll have a third and a fourth, too, if it'll shut you up." Leon's eyes light up like a child being promised candy. With a triumphant grin, he exclaims, "Really? Then you have to come back to my hometown with me." Yeah, Rossweiss replies, waving him off with a tired look. "We'll go back once everything is settled here." Finally releasing her tail, Leon jumps to his feet and cheers, shouting, "That's amazing! You're the best, Rossweiss!" Watching him, Rossweiss shakes her head in disbelief, a mix of exasperation and amusement playing on her face. He's even more irritating than usual today, she thinks, though she can't help but smile faintly. Leon suddenly leans in close, his grin widening as he declares, "My wife is the best!" Before Rossweiss can react, he leans forward, clearly intending to plant a kiss on her cheek. Startled, Rossweiss's eyes widen. With lightning reflexes, she presses a hand to his face and firmly pushes him away. No taking advantage of the situation. Internally, Rossweiss wrestles with her thoughts, trying to figure out how to handle the absurd situation. She wonders anxiously when the effects of the dragon force will finally wear off. As Leon stubbornly continues his antics, Rossweiss's patience snaps, and she punches him squarely in the face, calling him an idiot. Leon lets out a small yelp, stumbling slightly from the blow. Rossweiss crosses her arms, glaring at him, but internally admits she couldn't hold back any longer. Leon clutches his chest dramatically after taking the hit, and Rossweiss's frustration quickly turns to panic. Rushing to his side, she kneels down and asks in a concerned tone, "Are you okay, you fool?" Leon's breath grows heavier as he grits his teeth, clutching his chest tightly. "Wife," he groans, his voice trembling, "I feel really uncomfortable." Suddenly, a bright glow emanates from the dragon mark on Rossweiss's chest. Her eyes widen in shock. "This isn't good," she mutters, her heart racing. Without hesitation, she unbuttons Leon's shirt to examine him. As the fabric parts, the dragon mark on his chest begins to shine with an intense light. Rossweiss furrows her brow, her mind racing. Why is the dragon pattern activating now of all times? She wonders, anxiety creeping into her thoughts. Before she can think further, Leon suddenly grabs her shoulders, startling her. With unexpected strength, he pushes her onto the bed, climbing over her and pinning her hands down. "Leon!" Rossweiss shouts, her voice a mix of anger and alarm. "You bastard, what are you doing?" Leon's breath is labored, his face flushed as if burning with fever. He looks into her eyes, his expression desperate. "Wife," he whispers hoarsely, "I feel I feel so hot all over. My chest, it itches. Rossweiss's face flushes crimson at their proximity, her heart pounding as she glares at him. Gritting her teeth, she thinks furiously, the dragon pattern, combined with the lightning element, has heightened his instincts. It's fueling his desire to reproduce. Before she can say or do anything, Leon's gaze shifts. His eyes lock onto her tail, and with a sudden movement, he grabs it. Rossweiss freezes in shock as Leon brings the tail closer, sniffing it with a dazed expression. "Leon!" she snaps, her voice trembling between anger and embarrassment. "Let go of my tail right now!" But Leon only holds on tighter, his face dreamy as he mutters, "It smells so nice, wife. So soft." Rossweiss's eyes widen, her internal composure fraying. If this keeps up, I might actually lose control, she thinks nervously. Determined to put an end to his antics, she pushes against his face, attempting to stop him from sniffing her tail any further. "Leon, stop it!" she commands firmly, her tone sharper now. "My tail drags on the ground all day long. Aren't you disgusted by that?" But Leon's stubborn nature proves relentless. He resists her efforts, his hands clinging tightly to her. As Rossweiss continues to scold him, Leon suddenly places a finger gently on her lips, silencing her mid-sentence. Caught off guard, Rossweiss freezes, her breath hitching. She stares at him in surprise, unsure of what to say or do next. Leon gazes deeply into her eyes, his expression uncharacteristically intense. "Malif," he says softly, using her first name, something he rarely does. "You're so beautiful tonight." The unexpected compliment catches Rossweiss completely off guard. A wave of heat rushes to her face, her cheeks turning crimson. Looking away to avoid his piercing gaze, she stammers, "Even if you say that, I'm still mad at you." "What's going on?" Rossweiss wonders, her heart pounding erratically. This man. His attitude is completely different. There's something wild and intense about him tonight. Something I can't seem to reject. Despite her resistance, Rossweiss feels her resolve wavering. She steals a glance at him, only to find him still staring at her with a burning intensity. Against her better judgment, a small part of her begins to feel anticipation. Leon, sensing her hesitation, leans closer, his voice low and persuasive. "Wife," he whispers, "can you help me? Please?" Rossweiss bites her lip, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Finally, with her face still flushed, she mutters, "Fine, but tonight only." Leon's eyes light up with triumph as he pulls her into his arms, and the night stretches on, filled with the echoes of their fiery connection. At the Silver Dragon Castle the next morning, Leon slowly opens his eyes, the lingering effects of the dragon force finally subsiding. As his vision clears, he notices Rossweiss lying beside him in bed, her smirking expression aimed directly at him. "Awake, are we?" she asks with a teasing tone, her piercing gaze locked onto his. Hearing her voice so close, Leon bolts upright, his eyes wide with panic. "What? Rossweiss?" he shouts, staring at her in shock. "Why are you in my bed?" As the sudden movement sends a wave of pain through his body, Leon winces, clutching his aching muscles. "Ugh, everything hurts," he groans, then mutters, "My memory is fragmented. What the hell happened last night?" Rossweiss stretches casually before sliding out of bed. With a smirk, she turns to face him. "You don't remember anything?" she asks innocently, though the glint in her eyes says otherwise. Pointing to the visible bruises and marks on her arms and neck, she tilts her head and adds, "Dragon Slayer, surely you didn't forget, right?" Leon's eyes widen further as he spots the marks on her skin. "Hickeys? So many." His mind races as a cold sweat breaks out on his forehead. Did I really do that? Suddenly, fragments of his memory from the previous night begin to surface. One by one, the missing pieces click into place, each recollection more vivid than the last. He grips his head as the memories come flooding back, and when the full picture finally forms, Leon lets out a horrified scream. "No!" Rossweiss, still smirking, leans against the bed frame and folds her arms. "So, you do remember," she says, her tone dripping with amusement. "You begged me last night, Leon. said things like, "Honey, just one more time, okay? Wife, I feel so bad. Please help me. Just this once, and the last time." Leon's face burns with embarrassment as she mimics his pleading voice. "Stop it," he shouts, covering his ears in a desperate attempt to block her teasing. "I remember everything. There's no need to repeat it." Rossweiss's smirk widens as she watches Leon squirm, clearly enjoying his discomfort. Meanwhile, Leon pulls on his shirt, sneaking a sideways glance at her. Internally, he laments, "All I wanted was to refine the dragon force for my health, and maybe teach her a small lesson. How did it turn into this?" As Rossweiss finishes dressing, Leon lets out a resigned sigh. Looking at her briefly, he admits under his breath, "Maybe I went a little too far last night." Leon hesitantly asks Rossweiss, "Did I hurt you?" Rossweiss shakes her head with a calm demeanor. "It's fine," she replies, brushing off his concern. Folding his arms and adopting a smug expression, Leon looks at her and comments, "Well, now you should know whether I'm in good health or not. Next time, don't go doubting my abilities." Rossweiss's eyes narrow as she fixes an intense gaze on Leon. Her serious expression makes him shift uncomfortably. What's with that look?" Leon stammers, stepping back slightly. Without a word, Rossweiss closes the distance between them, her gaze unrelenting. Before Leon can react, she grabs his chin, leans in close, and, in a commanding tone, declares, "Dragon Slayer, I must say, I'm very satisfied with your performance last night. I hope you can keep it up in the future." Leon freezes, his face burning red as her words sink in. Internally, he screams, "What is happening? Have I somehow become her personal servant now?" Rossweiss steps back, her usual smirk returning, and changes the subject. "Now, about that bet," she says casually. The mention of the bet snaps Leon back to reality. His eyes narrow with suspicion as he studies her. "The bet?" he echoes, trying to mask his nervousness. A faint blush creeps onto Rossweiss's cheeks as she glances away. "Yes, the one where you insisted that the children should call me Mom. You said it would improve their affection for me. And, well, you won." Leon raises an eyebrow, a hint of pride flickering across his face. Rossweiss continues, her tone softer now. "So, have you thought about the request you'd like to make?" Scratching the back of his head, Leon hesitates before responding. With a rare, genuine expression, he says, "Actually, I have. I'd like you to send someone to the Empire to check on my master and his wife. I need to know if they're doing okay." Rossweiss's playful demeanor shifts as she considers his words, her expression growing thoughtful. Silver dragons aren't exactly known for stealth, but visiting someone isn't an issue," she replies. Hearing her response, Leon is overjoyed. His face lights up as he enthusiastically asks, "You're really okay with it?" In his excitement, he almost blurts out a casual, "Thank you," but catches himself, quickly straightening his posture. Clearing his throat, he coughs awkwardly to compose himself before speaking in a formal tone. "Thank you for your help," he says sincerely. Later, in the garden of the Silver Dragon Castle, Leon sits on a bench, his face pale and weary. Little Muan, noticing his restless expression, approaches him with a curious look. "Dad, are you sick?" she asks innocently. Startled by her sudden question, Leon jumps up nervously. Waving his hands in denial, he says, "What? No, of course not. Why would you say that?" Muan giggles, her laughter light and sweet. "Mom told me," she replies confidently. "She said you took medicine yesterday. And she said men can never admit when they're sick." Hearing her words, Leon's expression darkens. Gritting his teeth, he fumes internally. That meddling female dragon. How could she say that to a child? Do I even have any dignity left? Muan tilts her head, looking at him with genuine concern. "But you still don't look well, Dad. Is it because the medicine didn't work? Or maybe you didn't take enough of it?" Leon sighs, crouching to her level and placing his hands on her small shoulders. "Muan," he says gently but firmly, "it's rude to ask too many questions." As Leon tries to steer the conversation away, Muan suddenly gasps, "Dad, your mouth is bleeding!" Clinging to him with wide, teary eyes, she pleads, "Dad, I can't live without you. Please don't die." Leon, his heart melting at her words, gives her a warm smile. Patting her head gently, he reassures her. Daddy's really fine, Muan. I promise he's doing just fine. At least that's what he tells himself. As Leon gazes at Muan's bright, innocent face, he can't help but think to himself, as expected, she really is Rossweiss's daughter. There's something about her expressions, her sharp wit, and her cheeky persistence that always remind him of her mother. But in this situation, Leon decides he has to stay one step ahead. No mercy. He kneels down and asks, "How about Daddy makes you a new toy today?" The word toy immediately lights up Muan's eyes. She jumps up and down with excitement, clapping her hands. "Yes! I love toys the most, Daddy." Seeing her joy, Leon can't help but smile. "All right then," he says. "I'll make you something special." After some thought, he decides to create a Rubik's Cube, a toy he remembers from his own childhood. Sitting down with determination, Leon gets to work. Using his alchemical skills and a bit of mechanical ingenuity, he carefully crafts the cube. Once it's assembled, he takes his time painting each face with bright, vibrant colors. When the paint finally dries, Leon holds up the finished cube, his face glowing with pride. "Here you go, Muan," he says, showing it to her. "This little toy is called a Rubik's Cube. You can twist it however you like. Want to give it a try?" Muan's eyes widen with amazement as she eagerly takes the cube into her hands. Turning it over, she examines it curiously before starting to twist the sides. Her face lights up with delight as she figures out how it works. Leon watches her with a soft smile, feeling a warm sense of satisfaction. Who would have thought those alchemy mechanics lessons would come in handy for babysitting? He muses. Maybe I was born to be a babysitter after all. As this thought amuses him, a sudden flash of unease passes through him. Leon's smile fades, and his expression grows serious. He quickly turns, scanning his surroundings with sharp eyes. Noticing his sudden shift, Muan tilts her head curiously. "Daddy, what's wrong?" she asks, still holding the Rubik's Cube. Leon hesitates for a moment, his eyes lingering on the distance. Then, shaking off the tension, he replies with a calm smile, "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just thought I saw something." Leon returns to his thoughts, his brow furrowing in contemplation. Just moments ago, he felt something, a faint but unmistakable sensation of the dragon's gaze. His instincts tell him it's coming from the direction where Noah does her physical training. He wonders if Noah, as stubborn as she is, will ever choose to join them. Deciding to extend a gesture of connection, Leon resolves to make a Rubik's Cube for Noah as well. That night, as Muan sleeps peacefully in her room, the Silver Dragon Castle is enveloped in silence. Meanwhile, Noah quietly opens the door to her own room, stepping inside with her usual composure. Her sharp eyes immediately catch sight of the Rubik's Cube and the note resting on top of it, left behind by Leon. Curious, Noah picks up the note and reads it. In Leon's familiar handwriting, it says, "This is a toy for you, Noah. Your task is to figure out how to solve it. Think of it as a little challenge." Scoffing, Noah takes the Rubik's Cube into her hands and mutters, "What an idiot. I don't have time for children's toys." Yet, despite her words, she can't resist the urge to twist the sides of the cube experimentally, her fingers moving deftly. As she continues to toy with it, a faint blush creeps onto her cheeks. Holding the cube tightly, she whispers softly, "Thank you, Dad." To Noah, the Rubik's Cube isn't just a toy. It's a rare token of her father's affection, something she instinctively treasures. Quietly, she slides it into a small wooden box she keeps hidden beneath her bed, a personal collection she refers to as her treasure box. Unbeknownst to Noah, her younger sister Muan has been watching her secretly from the doorway. With her usual curiosity, Muan thinks to herself, "Sister's been acting a little strange lately, always hiding things in that box under her bed. What could it be?" When Noah steps out of the room later, Muan seizes her chance. "Detective Muan is on the case," she whispers with a mischievous giggle. Crawling under Noah's bed, she carefully retrieves the hidden wooden box. Excitedly, Muan opens the box and examines its contents. Fragments of their father's black and gold armor, the Rubik's Cube, and a nameplate with the engraving Noah K. Melkveh. written in Leon's hand. Muan's eyes widen in surprise. "They're all connected to Dad," she says aloud, her face lighting up with understanding. "So, that's why Noah's been so secretive." Just as she pieces it together, a shadow falls over her. Slowly, Muan turns to see Noah standing in the doorway, her expression dark and her eyes burning with fury. "Oh no," Muan whispers, her smile faltering. Noah strides into the room with an ominous calm, her voice low and cold. "What do you think you're doing, Detective Muan?" Completely unfazed by her sister's glare, Muan proudly grins and says, "I understand, sister. You really love Dad, don't you?" Noah's face flushes red, her embarrassment quickly turning into cold resolve. Without a word, she ties Muan up, silences her with a piece of cloth over her mouth, and retrieves her precious treasure box. Leaning down to Muan, who struggles fruitlessly, Noah smirks and says, "No peeking, got it?" Meanwhile, at St. Heath Academy, an elite institution among the Dragon Clan, the standards for student admission are famously rigorous. The Academy evaluates not only individual potential, but also the family's harmony and adherence to dragon ideals. It firmly believes that whether a young dragon hatches from an egg or is born live, only a loving and harmonious family can nurture a dragon to embody the proper virtues. As such, St. Heath Academy only accepts students from such families. To uphold the image of a perfect dragon family, the Silver Dragon Queen Rosweiss devises a plan, a family outing to Sky City, complete with a wholesome family photo. Sky City, a bustling hub in the dragon realm, is alive with parent dragons frolicking with their children. Amid the lively atmosphere, Rosweiss arrives in her magnificent dragon form, her scales gleaming like polished silver as she soars gracefully through the skies. The family follows, awestruck by her commanding presence. Finally, Muan, ever the playful one, slides gleefully down her mother's back. Leon, standing below with his arms extended, calls out, "Slow down, Muan! I'll catch you!" With perfect timing, he grabs her mid-slide, holding her securely in his arms. "Gotcha," he says with a warm smile, lifting Muan effortlessly. As the scene unfolds, Noah watches silently with her signature cool demeanor, arms crossed, observing the family interaction without a word. Rosweiss, having landed gracefully, shifts back into her human form. Muan, full of curiosity, looks up at her father and asks, "Daddy, why didn't you turn into a dragon just now? I really want to see you as a dragon." Leon freezes at the unexpected question. His smile stiffens as he awkwardly laughs, scratching the back of his head. Internally, he's panicking. "Dear daughter, Daddy is great at slaying dragons, but turning into one? You'd better forget about it." Before he can come up with a plausible excuse, Noah fixes her sharp gaze on him and coldly asks, "So, is it that you can't transform? Or you won't?" Leon feels the weight of her words and falters, completely caught off guard. He looks back and forth between Noah and Rosweiss, hoping for a lifeline. The pressure mounts as both daughters await his answer. Sensing his discomfort, Rosweiss steps in with a composed smile and says, "Your father's body hasn't fully recovered yet, so he can't transform into a dragon for the time being. Rosweiss promises the children that Leon will show them when he recovers." Muan, her face full of concern, looks up at her father and says earnestly, "Daddy, you have to get better soon." Leon smiles at her reassuringly, patting her head. "I'll do my best, Muan," he says. But inwardly, he thinks to himself, "It's impossible. Absolutely impossible." Rosweiss quickly changes the subject, clapping her hands to gather their attention. "All right, everyone, let's head into town. We have things to do today." Muan bursts with excitement, dashing ahead down the bustling street. "Noah, look! There are so many dragons here," she exclaims, her voice filled with wonder. Noah, ever composed, follows at a steady pace and warns her younger sister, "Slow down, Muan. Don't run off too fast." As the two girls move ahead, they catch the attention of the dragon citizens. Many pause to admire the siblings, their gazes filled with curiosity and adoration. Meanwhile, Rosweiss and Leon walk behind them. Leon's expression darkens, and his body begins to tremble ever so slightly. He doesn't say a word, but Rosweiss notices immediately. Is he shaking? Rosweiss wonders, glancing at him from the corner of her eye. She quickly puts two and two together. It must be the first time he's seen so many dragons since waking up from his coma. Leaning closer to him with a sly smirk, she whispers, "Are you scared, Leon?" Leon, his face still dark, says nothing at first. Then, with a sudden arrogant glint in his eye, he snaps, "Who's scared? Me? You must be joking." Rosweiss raises an eyebrow as Leon points dramatically at the dragon citizens around them. "I'm excited, Rosweiss. Can't you tell?" he declares, puffing out his chest. "Do you know what I see? First-class merits, second-class merits, third-class merits. Merits everywhere. The streets are practically paved with gold. I'm going to get rich." The dragon citizens stop in their tracks, staring at Leon in confusion and disbelief as he points at them with his finger, his eyes practically glowing with greedy excitement. Then, as if oblivious to the bewildered stares, Leon whistles nonchalantly and strolls off with a self-satisfied grin. Rosweiss pinches the bridge of her nose, exhaling sharply. I worried about him for no reason. Again, she thinks, watching Leon as he laughs to himself, dreaming of the fortune he imagines awaiting him. Walking a few steps ahead, Leon chuckles under his breath, his thoughts racing. If I bring them all back, how much money could I make? Later, they arrive at a specific shop in town. As the door creaks open, the dragon shopkeepers immediately bow low, their voices filled with reverence. Your Majesty, the Silver Dragon Queen, and her family, it is our great honor to serve you. Rosweiss enters the shop with Leon and the children following behind. Inside, Muan runs excitedly from one corner of the room to another. Grabbing Noah's hand, she tugs her sister along, pointing at the walls. "Noah, look! So many dragon pictures!" Muan exclaims, her eyes sparkling with wonder. Noah remains silent, her stoic demeanor unchanged. Meanwhile, Leon leans closer to Rosweiss, his curiosity getting the better of him. "Aren't you the Silver Dragon Queen?" he asks in a low voice. "Why did you come to the store to take photos yourself? Shouldn't someone else handle this?" Rosweiss gives him a side glance, clearly unimpressed. "The Dragon King of a tribe can only command members of their own tribe," she explains. "The dragons of Sky City, however, do not belong to any specific tribe. They're independent." Leon smirks, clearly enjoying himself. "So, basically, your queenly status doesn't hold much weight here, huh?" Before he can blink, Rosweiss stomps on his foot with her sharp high heels. Leon yelps in pain, hopping on one leg as he clutches his throbbing foot. Rosweiss, with a sweet yet dangerous smile, replies, "Well, in any case, I'm taller than you now." The head shopkeeper chuckles nervously at the exchange before stepping forward and bowing. It's truly an honor to have the Silver Dragon Queen and her family here. To take a family photo for Her Majesty is a privilege beyond compare. Rosweiss straightens up, flipping her hair with a confident smile. "Everyone says my photography skills are top-notch among the dragon tribe," she boasts. "It's your great fortune that we successfully scheduled this appointment." As they speak, the head shopkeeper glances toward Leon and asks hesitantly, "What about Her Majesty's husband's tail? Should it be included in the photo?" Rosweiss waves the question away. "He's not fond of showing his tail," she says with a casual shrug. "Let's pick a tailless suit for him instead." Her words trigger a memory and she smirks as she recalls the incident earlier at the Silver Dragon Castle. Before they left for Sky City, she had presented Leon with a custom-made silver dragon tail decoration, asking him to wear it. Leon's reaction, however, had been immediate and dramatic. "Absolutely not," he had exclaimed, taking several steps back as if the tail were cursed. "I'll never wear that thing. Even if I die, it's about my dignity." Back in the shop, Rosweiss shakes her head at the memory, amused by Leon's stubbornness. The head shopkeeper, unaware of the backstory, simply nods and gestures for Rosweiss to move to another area to try on her outfits. Meanwhile, on the other side of the shop, Muan skips around with infectious excitement. "I want to wear a pretty dress," she chirps cheerfully, her enthusiasm lighting up the room. After a while, Muan and Noah emerge from the changing room in their new dresses, both looking stunning for the family photo. Shortly after, Leon steps out wearing a crisp white suit. His polished appearance is a stark contrast to his usual casual demeanor. Muan, catching sight of her father in the new outfit, gasps in delight. "Dad, you look so handsome!" she exclaims, her voice filled with surprise and admiration. The head shopkeeper nods approvingly, her smile warm. "The suit fits the prince perfectly," she says. "I imagine he must have been quite popular in his youth." Leon raises an eyebrow, clearly pleased by the compliment. "You really think so?" he replies with a smirk. "Honestly, the last time I wore something this formal was at my school graduation ceremony." He then turns his attention to Noah, catching her off guard. "What do you think, Noah?" he asks. Noah, momentarily surprised by the question, glances at him before quickly looking away. A faint blush dusts her cheeks as she mutters, "You look quite handsome." Grinning brightly at her response, Leon pats both Muan and Noah on their heads affectionately. "And your dresses are adorable too," he adds with a genuine warmth that makes both girls smile. Just then, Rossweiss steps out from the dressing room, dressed in a breathtaking gown that perfectly complements her elegance. For a moment, everyone is left speechless. Leon, his jaw dropping slightly, stares at her in awe. It's undeniable. Rossweiss looks absolutely stunning. Rossweiss, noticing his dumbfounded gaze, smirks and tilts her head. "What's wrong, Leon?" she asks with playful curiosity. Leon quickly snaps out of his trance, looking away and scratching the back of his head awkwardly. "Nothing, it's just that dress suits you," he mumbles, his voice barely audible. Hearing his unexpected compliment, Rossweiss blushes faintly and averts her eyes. "Well," she says, trying to sound nonchalant, "I think it would look even better if you had a tail." Leon's expression darkens at the comment. Internally, he screams, "I will never wear a tail, not in this lifetime." The head shopkeeper steps in, her cheerful voice cutting through the tension. "All right, everyone, let's get ready for the family photo," she says, positioning the camera. Muan, waving her little hands, calls out, "Mom! Dad! Come here!" She tugs at Noah's hand, pulling her sister into position. As Rossweiss and Leon take their places, the shopkeeper encourages them. "Your Majesty, Prince Leon, step a little closer, please. Let's capture the love and harmony of this beautiful family." Rossweiss and Leon glance at each other, both stubbornly looking away, neither wanting to admit their hesitation. Leon thinks to himself, "No way am I getting closer to her," while Rossweiss likely has a similar thought. "All right, everyone, smile," the shopkeeper announces, starting the countdown. Muan beams with uncontainable enthusiasm, her cheerful energy lighting up the scene. Meanwhile, Noah maintains her cool, aloof demeanor, and Leon and Rossweiss look as though they're barely tolerating the moment. With a click, the family photo is taken. Predictably, Muan's bright smile steals the show, while everyone else looks composed, if not slightly cold. Afterward, another photo is arranged with just Muan and Noah, the sisters hugging each other in a rare moment of affection. For the final shot, the shopkeeper suggests something unique. Rossweiss and Leon creating a love-shaped symbol. Rossweiss coils her tail into half a heart, and Leon reluctantly completes the other half with his hand. The resulting photo is equal parts adorable and awkward, with Rossweiss's playful smirk contrasting Leon's begrudging expression. In the end, even Leon has to admit the photos turned out well, though he silently vows never to speak of the heart symbol again. In another photo, Rossweiss and Leon face each other, their gazes locked in a fiery stare. Though their flushed faces betray a hint of embarrassment, the rivalry in their eyes is unmistakable. The head shopkeeper, observing this dynamic, chuckles and comments, "You two really look like a couple." This photo is definitely one for the books, a special edition, if you will. Speaking of special editions, let's revisit Leon's graduation ceremony. On the day of Leon's graduation, a crowd of his female juniors surrounds him, each vying for his attention. One girl shyly asks, "Senior Leon, can we take a photo together?" Another pipes up, "Will you have dinner with us later?" A third girl, handing him a carefully wrapped gift, pleads, "Please accept this, Senior Leon." Leon, caught in the middle of the overwhelming attention, looks flustered and unsure of how to extricate himself. His face twists into a mix of hesitation and mild panic as he struggles to reject their advances without seeming rude. Finally, composing himself, Leon adopts a stern expression and declares, "I'm sorry, but I can't. I have to head back and nail hooves for my master's donkey. Maybe next time." His abrupt excuse leaves the girls stunned, their hopeful expressions quickly turning to disappointment. One by one, they retreat, their hearts visibly breaking as they walk away. Leon sighs in relief, waving them off with a quick, "Goodbye!" His tone is cheerful, but the girls' crushed spirits linger in the air. From a distance, Leon's master watches the entire scene unfold. With a long, exasperated sigh, he mutters to himself, "Did this guy get kicked in the head by a donkey? What is wrong with him?" Now in the Sky City, after taking their photos at the shop, the head shopkeeper informs them it will take about 6 hours for the photos to be developed. During this time, she suggests Her Majesty take a leisurely stroll around the city. As they leave, Muan waves her hand cheerfully to the shopkeeper, while Noah and Leon exchange a glance, silent but telling, as if suspecting something unusual. Without warning, Muan grabs Noah's hand and dashes through the bustling streets, her excitement bubbling over as she urges him to look over there. Leon and Rossweiss follow at a steadier pace, their children's energy impossible to match. As they walk, Leon glances at Rossweiss, a faint smile playing on his lips. "I never thought I'd get the chance to go shopping with you. This feels different," he remarks. Rossweiss responds with her usual calm demeanor, reminding him, "This is just to maintain our family image." Then, softening a little, she adds, "Besides, Noah has been preparing for her entrance exam so seriously. She's worked hard for nearly a month. It's good for her to relax once in a while." As the parents continue their conversation, Muan and Noah stop abruptly at a lively stall featuring a balloon shooting game. Their attention is immediately captured by a cute teddy bear among the prizes. Muan's eyes sparkle like stars, and Noah looks equally enchanted by the fluffy bear. When Leon and Rossweiss catch up, they pause, surprised to find the kids utterly absorbed in the game. Noah steps forward first, picking up the toy gun with an air of determination. She takes aim carefully at a balloon, but the result is less than ideal. She either misses entirely or hits a balloon that stubbornly refuses to pop. Her failure leads to a tense silence, and Noah's face twists into the most adorable pout of frustration. Muan's excitement dims as well, her expression mirroring Noah's disappointment. The shopkeeper, noticing their dejected faces, offers an encouraging smile. "If you try a few more times, I'm sure you'll hit it." At that moment, Leon steps forward, shaking his head with a chuckle. "So, they've got this kind of game here too, huh?" Muan beams at him, calling out enthusiastically, "Dad!" While Noah, still pouting, mutters that she just can't seem to win. Leon laughs awkwardly, his instincts telling him these games are rigged to make winning difficult. Seeing her father as the last hope, Noah shoves the toy gun into his hands with an almost commanding pout. Leon takes it, examining the toy intently, as memories surface of similar games he'd seen in human markets. Rossweiss observes Leon closely and comments, "The bullets of this toy gun are made of magical energy. It requires precise control to handle the magic properly. No wonder it's a bit difficult for Noah." The shopkeeper, sensing an opportunity, turns to Leon and Rossweiss with a sly smile. "Would you two like to give it a try? If you manage to hit all the balloons within 10 shots, you can win the pair of teddy bears your daughters seem to have their eyes on." Internally, the shopkeeper chuckles, proud of his ploy. He had intentionally let the kids try first to lure their parents into spending more money. Leon glances down at Noah and Muan, his voice gentle as he asks, "Do you two want the teddy bears?" Noah crosses her arms and turns away, huffing indignantly. "I'm not interested," she declares, though her tone betrays her. Beside her, Muan's shoulders droop, her voice soft and wistful. Muan doesn't want them either. The girls' attempts to hide their true feelings don't fool Leon. He sighs inwardly, knowing full well they both want the bears, but are too stubborn to admit it. Turning to Rossweiss with a mischievous grin, Leon points a finger at her and confidently announces to the shopkeeper, "Give me 10 shots! She'll pay for it." Rossweiss, caught off guard, gasps in surprise. What? Me? The shopkeeper, laughing at the unexpected dynamic, rubs his hands together. That's the spirit. Leon picks up the gun, his expression shifting to one of focus as he aims at the balloons. Memories of his training days at the Dragon Slayer Academy flash through his mind. It's been a while since I've held a gun, he thinks to himself, the weight of nostalgia settling briefly on him. Meanwhile, Rossweiss begrudgingly hands over the gold to the shopkeeper, who accepts it with a quick and cheerful, "Thanks!" Leon lines up his first shot and fires. Miss He fires again. Another miss. Shot after shot. The results are the same. He fails to hit a single balloon. The shopkeeper smirks, satisfaction blooming in his chest. He had tampered with the gun's settings, making it nearly impossible for anyone, regardless of their skill, to succeed. Leon, however, isn't ready to give up. He taps the gun lightly, his brow furrowed in thought. "What's going on?" he murmurs, scanning the weapon for flaws. Sliding his left hand casually into his pocket, he takes a deep breath and aims again. This time, his movements are smooth and calculated. One by one, the balloons burst with each shot. The shopkeeper's smirk vanishes, his jaw drops, and his eyes widen in disbelief as Leon flawlessly hits all 10 targets. Spinning the gun nonchalantly in his hand, Leon shrugs and remarks with a smirk, "Guess I just needed to test the sights first." Didn't expect to hit them all after that. The shopkeeper stands frozen, his mind racing as he silently wonders how anyone could pull off such a feat. Rossweiss, with a soft smile, compliments Leon, saying, "Not bad." Muan, her cheeks slightly flushed with admiration, clutches her teddy bear and exclaims cheerfully, "Dad is amazing." Noah, also blushing faintly in surprise, chimes in, "Dad is so sharp." Pretending to be impressed, the shopkeeper reluctantly hands over the pair of teddy bears, his smile forced as he exclaims, "That's awesome!" While handing over the prizes, he mutters internally, "Just take them and leave already." Leon accepts the teddy bears with a warm smile and thanks the shopkeeper graciously. Then, turning to his daughters, he kneels and hands one bear to Muan and the other to Noah, saying with a gentle tone, "These are for you." Muan, overjoyed, hugs her teddy bear tightly and beams up at him. "Thank you, Dad," she says, her voice brimming with happiness. Noah, holding her bear carefully and inspecting it as though it's a treasure, quietly murmurs, "Thanks, Dad." Rossweiss watches the scene unfold from the side, a hint of surprise in her expression. The rare harmony and affection in the moment catch her off guard. As she observes Leon, a thought crosses her mind. Although this guy is usually a little off-key, every time he gets serious, he has a special charm. Leon, noticing Rossweiss lost in thought, keeps his gaze on her. Something in her expression stirs a decision in his mind. Rossweiss, sensing his eyes on her, glances at him and wonders why he's staring. As his gaze lingers, Leon's lips curl into a faint smile. Without warning, he says, "Oh, I have some thoughts about Rossweiss, too. Let's see where they lead." Later, after some time, Rossweiss and the family continue strolling through the bustling streets. As they walk, a little dragon girl points her finger toward Rossweiss and tugs at her mother's sleeve, saying, "I want that too." The little dragon girl's mother, startled by the comment, looks at Rossweiss with a hint of surprise, but says nothing, choosing to remain silent. Meanwhile, Leon recalls a plan he had been mulling over. He had decided earlier to get his big baby girl a teddy bear as well. True to his thoughts, Leon manages to procure a large teddy bear and hands it to Rossweiss. Rossweiss, now holding the oversized teddy bear, walks alongside the family in silence, her expression calm and unreadable. She doesn't react to the little dragon girl's remark. After all, the girl was speaking to her mother, not Rossweiss. Leon, walking with his hands folded behind his head, chuckles and breaks the silence. "Did you notice the miserable expression on that unscrupulous businessman's face at the end?" he asks. "It felt like he was finally rid of us, and his anger all at once." He recalls the moment vividly, how, after showing the shopkeeper the money and demanding another shot, the man's face turned pale, his jaw dropping in disbelief as he began to fear Leon's inevitable victory. Rossweiss, her voice cool and detached, responds, "If it had been me, I'd have simply advised you not to waste your time on such a childish game." Leon glances at her, grinning. "Come on," he says. "We're out here together, and it's good that we're having some fun." Turning his gaze toward her, he tilts his head slightly and asks, "Unless you didn't enjoy it?" Rosweiss, with a straight face, replies curtly, "I didn't say that." Leon, pointing a finger at her, declares confidently, "Now that you're here, I can't let you go back empty-handed." Rosweiss, holding onto the large teddy bear, blushes faintly as a thought crosses her mind. Bears are just unpalatable food, not even good enough to fill one's stomach. But when they're made into toys, they're surprisingly cute. Without waiting for Leon's response, she quickly strides past him, her cheeks still flushed. With a playful pout, she tosses over her shoulder, "Come find me after dinner tonight." Leon freezes mid-step, her words catching him off guard. He stares after her, wide-eyed, as a wave of surprise washes over him. A moment later, he's left standing in the middle of the street, utterly stunned, a metaphorical question mark hovering over his head. Later that evening, in the Silver Dragon Castle, Leon recalls Rosweiss's cryptic invitation as he walks down a dimly lit corridor after dinner. Her words replay in his mind, "Come find me after dinner." "It's late at night, and I'm heading to her room alone," Leon mutters to himself, a mix of anticipation and apprehension tightening his chest. "If I go, I'll feel awkward the entire night. If I don't go, I'll be restless for a week." Clenching his fists in frustration, Leon makes up his mind. "Fine, I'll go see her. Whatever happens, happens." He storms down the hall, his footsteps echoing in determination. When Leon reaches Rosweiss's door, he stops and takes a deep breath, readying himself to knock. But before his knuckles meet the wood, he notices the door is slightly ajar. Curious, he pushes it open and steps inside, his gaze sweeping across the room in search of her. The sound of running water reaches his ears, and realization dawns on him. She's still in the shower. Leon's eyes wander toward the bathroom, where the faint outline of Rosweiss is visible through the glass shower door. He frowns, noting the transparency. What kind of poor quality glass is this? He thinks, averting his gaze in embarrassment. As the moments tick by, Leon's mind races. Shocked and uneasy, he begins to wonder, do I really have to deal with this tonight? Snapping back to reality, Leon shakes his head, trying to steady his thoughts. Slowly, he peeks toward the shower, his eyes widening momentarily. Whether he actually peeked or not remains uncertain. The image is fleeting and unclear, making it hard to say for sure. Rosweiss, now in her pajamas and still under the lingering mist of hot water, looks stunning. Her long silver hair clings to her damp skin and droplets of water glisten faintly on her face and body. As she notices Leon, her calm voice cuts through the steam. "You're here. Let's get started." Leon's heart skips a beat at the sight. It's only natural. Anyone would be captivated by such beauty. With a flicker of nervousness on his face, he thinks to himself, am I about to be squeezed dry again? For now, the story leaves the romance lingering tantalizingly on the edge. There's a special extra edition. 6 hours later, the photos are finally ready. Muan and Noah eagerly look through the pictures of their parents, Leon and Rosweiss. Muan, her eyes sparkling with excitement, exclaims, "Mom and Dad look like such a perfect match." Noah, however, remains quiet as she gazes at the photos, her expression unreadable. Leon, flipping through the pictures, suddenly notices something unusual. "Hey, there's a card attached to this photo," he says, holding it up. Hearing this, Rosweiss, her curiosity piqued, steps closer. "Show it to me," she insists. Leon turns the photo around, revealing a handwritten note from the head shopkeeper. Together, he and Rosweiss read the words aloud. "May the silver light always shine in the eyes of the one they love." Their faces flush instantly, bright red with embarrassment. Both speak at once in protest. "Who's in love with whom?" Leon sputters, "Who's in love with her?" Rosweiss snaps back, "Who's in love with him?" Still flustered, Rosweiss hides her face for a moment, before adding in a small, indignant voice, "There must be some mistake. Fix this photo for me." Leon, nodding quickly, agrees. Yeah, it must have been written wrong. Seeing Rossweiss like this, Leon's heart skips a beat. It's impossible to blame him. Anyone would be awestruck by such beauty. He swallows hard, his mind racing. With a flicker of nervousness, he thinks to himself, am I about to be squeezed dry again? Rossweiss steps out of the shower room and, without missing a beat, asks, where would you like to do it? The living room or the balcony? Leon freezes, her words catching him completely off guard. His face turns bright red as panic sets in. Stammering slightly, he nervously replies, the balcony? That's not good, right? I mean, people might see us. That would be embarrassing. Rossweiss, casually glancing into the mirror and adjusting her damp hair, responds with an air of indifference. The living room is fine then, it makes no difference to me. Leon exhales deeply, feeling trapped by the situation. Finally, with a dramatic sigh, he clenches his fists and yells, fine. Come on, do it. He lies back on the sofa, his teeth gritted and eyes tightly shut, bracing himself for whatever's about to happen. Rossweiss, noticing his odd behavior, raises an eyebrow. What are you doing? She asks, her voice laced with amusement. Leon cracks one eye open, his face flushed. Aren't you going to, do it? He blurts out. Rossweiss, now sitting on the opposite sofa with her legs elegantly crossed, lets a sly smile creep onto her face. Mr. Casanova seems quite eager, she teases. Then, with a calm but playful tone, she adds, but tonight isn't suitable. Let's do it another day. Her words hit Leon like a bolt of lightning. He sits up abruptly, his face a vivid shade of crimson. What? He exclaims, utterly mortified. Rossweiss smirks, clearly enjoying his reaction, as Leon buries his face in his hands, silently vowing to get even for her teasing one day. Rossweiss places a paper on the table that she had been holding earlier. Leon, quickly sitting up on the sofa and coughing awkwardly, asks, what's this? Rossweiss adjusts her posture and explains, these are test questions from St. Heath Academy, used to evaluate viviparous families in the past. The questions focus on the partner's living habits, personalities, and shared experiences. She sets down more papers and continues, we need to get these answers right in advance. If we can't respond properly later, it could affect Noah's admission evaluation. Leon picks up the paper, skimming through the questions. With a skeptical look, he comments, these are like questions from one of those cheesy couples' tacit understanding games. Rossweiss raises an eyebrow. Cheesy or not, they're important. Leon shrugs and continues, they're asking about stuff like your partner's favorite color, a phrase they often say, where you went on your first date, or which book they like to read. Really? Looking up from the paper, he calls out, all right then, Rossweiss. What's your favorite color? Black, she replies with a calm expression, then asks, what about you? Silver, Leon answers without hesitation. Their eyes lock for a moment, an unspoken realization hanging between them. The intensity of their gaze grows, and suddenly both of them become self-conscious. Their faces flush red as they quickly turn away, awkwardly brushing off the moment. It's just a coincidence, Rossweiss mutters, glancing to the side. Yeah, just a coincidence, Leon agrees, scratching the back of his head and looking in the opposite direction. Snapping back to the task at hand, Rossweiss clears her throat. In any case, we need to test how well we know each other. Fine by me, Leon replies, grabbing a pen. The two begin filling in the answers, their focus shifting entirely to the task. A short while later, Leon leans back and declares, I'm done. Rossweiss finishes moments after and nods. Let's check the scores. They swap papers to review each other's answers. When the tally's complete, Rossweiss scores 45 points, while Leon scores 58. Leon smirks, leaning back smugly. Looks like I scored higher than you. Seems like I know the queen better than she knows me. Rossweiss narrows her eyes at him, hiding her slight embarrassment. Don't get too full of yourself. Next time, I'll do better. Leon chuckles, savoring his small victory, as Rossweiss silently vows to outscore him in their next test. Hearing Leon's words, Rossweiss becomes visibly irritated, her cheeks puffing out as she makes a cute, pouting face. Glancing at her score, she feels a mix of frustration and surprise. I didn't expect him to notice even my small habits, she thinks. The way I sit or how I position my tail to feel most comfortable? He must be more observant than I thought. One question catches her attention. Has your partner ever been particularly disappointed with you about something? Leon had marked yes. However, Rossweiss herself answered no. Looking at his response, she sighs inwardly. The truth is, the only mistakes he's ever made are in guessing my thoughts. Folding her arms and closing her eyes briefly, Rossweiss reflects, I've always kept things to myself, never sharing openly with others. It's no wonder he guessed wrong. Her gaze shifts back to Leon, who is completely engrossed in reviewing the question paper, his brows furrowed in concentration. Watching him, a soft thought crosses her mind. Maybe, if it's him, I could rely on him. I could open up to him someday. Leon suddenly notices her staring. Her eyes haven't left him, their gaze steady, intense, and somehow adorable. For a moment, he wonders, is she mad about the score? The thought makes him chuckle inwardly. Still holding a grudge over the score, huh? He teases lightly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Rossweiss blinks, startled, as if snapped out of a trance. Her eyes dart to his hand, then back to his face. Smiling warmly, Leon says, Hey, it's no big deal. We haven't spent that much time together yet. It's only natural that you wouldn't score high this time. Give it a little more time, and you'll know me better than I know myself. His words are lighthearted, but the sincerity in his voice catches her off guard. Rossweiss feels her heart skip a beat, then begin pounding so hard she's certain it's audible. She clutches the question paper, trying to steady herself as an unfamiliar warmth spreads through her chest. What's wrong with me, she wonders, her face flushing as she struggles to meet his eyes. Embarrassed, she quickly slams the question paper into Leon's face and, blushing fiercely, demands that he stop talking nonsense and write down his correct answers. Leon, still staring at her, asks with a teasing smile if she really got this question wrong. He points out that she had previously said she'd never been disappointed in him. Rossweiss, flustered, denies it, but then adds, If I must point out something, it would be the lack of Dragon Great Forces last time. Leon smirks and teases, From now on, I'll make Dragon Great Force pills my meals. Don't regret it later. With a sly smile, Rossweiss replies, I'm looking forward to it. The scene shifts to the night before the entrance exam. Leon reviews the question paper and nods in satisfaction. After a week of hard work, our average score on the test questions is over 80. If we perform normally, there shouldn't be any problem with the family assessment. Rossweiss, utterly exhausted, collapses onto the bed without responding. Leon, getting up to leave, says, If there's nothing else, I'll head back first. Still, Rossweiss remains silent. As Leon reaches the door, she suddenly grabs his shirt sleeve, stopping him. Wait, she says softly, her tone catching his attention. Leon turns with a questioning look, and Rossweiss points toward the shower room. There's a bathtub in my bathroom. Go take a bath and then come back. Leon, stunned, blinks in surprise. What do you mean by telling me to take a shower in your room? Rossweiss, without hesitation, starts pushing him toward the shower room. Just go and wash when I tell you to. Hurry up. Rossweiss, Leon protests, calling her name as she continues to push him. But she doesn't listen. After pushing Leon into the shower room, Rossweiss quickly closes the door. Leon, looking toward the door and taking off his shirt, wonders why she wants him to take a shower in her bathroom for no reason. He questions if she's planning something bad. Leon, sighing, reasons that she's probably just been very nervous these days because of the entrance exam. So, it should be fine. Deciding to stop worrying, Leon steps into the bathtub and resolves to enjoy it regardless of the reason. Immersed in the hot water, Leon relaxes and says to himself that it feels so good. As Leon is enjoying the bath, Rossweiss slowly opens the bathroom door, wrapped in a towel. Noticing her, Leon is taken aback and loudly calls out Rossweiss's name. Rossweiss, with a smirking smile, looks at him, flicking her hair behind her ear, and the dragon mark on her chest activating starts to glow. Looking at Leon, Rossweiss says that she has been feeling a lot of pressure these days and that she wants to do it now. Leon, shocked by her words, with a pale face, internally thinks that what he had been fearing has finally come true. The dragon mark on Rosweiss's chest now resonates with the dragon mark on his chest. Leon, alarmed, stands up and loudly asks why. If she's under pressure, she's putting pressure on him. Rosweiss, smiling and winking at him, says that by transferring the pressure to him, she can feel relieved, and asks if she isn't right. Rosweiss removes the towel wrapped around her, and standing in front of him naked, asks if he didn't come here with this mentality a few days ago. Leon, unable to deny the truth, looks away and thinks in silence, realizing he can't refuse her. Rosweiss then steps into the bathtub nakedly with Leon, leaning on his chest and looking into his eyes. She tells Leon that he can't run away and urges him to just surrender. Leon doesn't resist and complies with her. The dragon marks on their chests begin glowing brightly, the intensity increasing. We all know what's about to unfold. On the day of the admission test at St. Heath Academy, Leon and Rosweiss arrive with Noah. Leon looks around in awe, remarking that this is St. Heath Academy. He turns to Rosweiss, who remains silent, her face serious. Concerned, Leon leans closer and asks her what's wrong, mentioning that he'd just done the decompression last night, but the effect wore off quickly. Rosweiss's face flushes with embarrassment, and she hits his back, muttering for him to go to hell under her breath. Leon laughs and tells her to let's go. Together, they enter the academy. During registration, they submit Noah's details. The receptionist reads aloud, Noah K. Melkve, Silver Dragon Clan. Age, 1 year and 3 months. Seeing the receptionist's skeptical expression, Leon asks if there's a problem. The receptionist replies there's no issue, just a little surprise. She explains that while the academy's minimum age for young dragons to enroll is 1 year, most of the young dragons are around 4 to 6 years old. Then, with a slight smirk, she asks if Noah is the princess, suggesting she might be a bit too young. Rosweiss, her face serious, responds that Noah is very smart and that her age is no issue. They respect her decision. The receptionist nods and tells them to proceed. She informs them that a special staff member will escort Noah to the written test, while the accompanying parents will need to go to the 4th floor for a home assessment. On the 4th floor in the meeting room, Leon and Rosweiss sit with the academy staff. Rosweiss, holding Leon's hand and leaning close with a smile, whispers and asks, based on his experience, if he thinks the 3 people there are easy to deal with. Leon, looking at them with a straight, uninterested face, whispers back that they look easy to kill. He reflects that the person he was before being captured by her would have easily taken their heads in 50 rounds. Leon, his face twisted in anger and radiating killing intent, grits his teeth and tightens his fist, whispering to Rosweiss that if they dare prevent Noah from attending the academy, he will meet them with a sword. The 3 academy staff, sensing the intensity of his killing intent, think to themselves that he must be an imposing parent. One of them, an older man, introduces himself as Walter Wilson, the vice principal of St. Heath Academy, and explains that he will be responsible for their assessment today. With a calm demeanor, the vice principal reassures them not to be nervous, urging them to simply relax and answer their questions. Rosweiss, forcing a polite smile, nods in agreement. Leon, also wearing a strained smile, silently notes that this old man doesn't seem as simple as he appears, wondering if something strange might be about to unfold. The vice principal then asks if they remember when their wedding anniversary is. Rosweiss and Leon exchange a glance, realizing that this question was anticipated. Back in the Silver Dragon Castle bedroom, Rosweiss had once told Leon that if anyone ever asked about their wedding anniversary, they needed to have a prepared response. After all, they hadn't officially married yet, and she had become pregnant before they could tie the knot. Leon, recalling her suggestion, thinks for a moment and says that if he had to choose a day that left a deep impression on him, it would be that day. Rosweiss, understanding his train of thought, completes his statement by saying it was the year 1733 of the creation calendar. Back in the interview, both Rosweiss and Leon confidently state that it was May 25th. Leon, however, silently reflects that this was the day he and Rosweiss had bonded in the dungeon. The vice principal, glancing at the submitted papers with a hint of suspicion, remarks that their child is already over 1 year old, despite being married for less than 2 years. He notes that this progress seems much faster than that of ordinary families. Leon, laughing awkwardly, explains that they fell in love at first sight, had a wonderful relationship, and quickly got married and pregnant. Shifting his focus, the vice principal asks if, in the 2 years of marriage, they've discovered any shortcomings or bad habits in their partner. Leon answers yes, while Rosweiss responds no. Internally, both of them think that their answers should be a mix of truth and fiction, just enough to seem believable. When asked to elaborate, Leon begins to act, putting on a sad face. With an Oscar-worthy performance, he claims that sometimes he feels like he doesn't exist. Then, blushing and dramatically placing his hand on his chest, he says his wife is so capable, managing family affairs and housework with exceptional order, making him feel insignificant. As Leon delivers his glowing monologue, Rosweiss stares at him with a long, unimpressed expression, clearly not entertained by his performance. Blushing now, Leon looks at Rosweiss and gently takes her hands. Rosweiss, playing along with his act and blushing as well, looks into his eyes. With a soft voice, Leon tells her that she easily accumulates stress, so he wants to take this opportunity to tell her something important. He says he wants to do more for their family and asks her to rely on him. Internally, however, he thinks to himself that she shouldn't exploit him when he's under a lot of pressure in the future. An older woman suddenly interjects, commenting on how considerate and good a husband he is. She then turns to Rosweiss and asks what she thinks is the most attractive thing about her husband. Surprised, Rosweiss looks at the older woman for a moment before responding. With a flushed face, Rosweiss says that her husband is handsome, has a great figure, is focused, serious, smart, responsible, likes children, and never loses his temper. She adds that he's not greasy, which makes him even more attractive. Rosweiss further explains that although her health hasn't been as good as it was before marriage, it's not a major issue because her husband is skilled at making medicine. She mentions that he uses all sorts of remedies to treat her. Leon, hearing her words, forces a smile but laughs awkwardly. Internally, he wonders if she's praising him or subtly insulting him. Suddenly, Rosweiss, still holding Leon's hands, looks into his eyes with a concerned expression. Leon, caught off guard, awkwardly glances back at her, unsure of how to respond. Rosweiss then says that she would also like to take this opportunity to tell her husband not to push himself too much. As she speaks, she tightens her grip on Leon's hand, applying enough pressure that he screams internally in pain. The three old geezers, completely fooled by their act, internally think what a loving couple they make. Later, the three assessors ask Rosweiss and Leon a series of questions, and the couple answers each one with poise and grace, leaving a strong impression. As the interview nears its conclusion, the old man asks if they have any questions for the other party. He explains that this is an additional question, and the person being asked must answer truthfully. Rosweiss, shaking her head with a light smile, says she has no questions for her husband, because she already knows everything about him. The old man then turns to Leon and asks if he has a question for Rosweiss. Leon, appearing deep in thought, pauses for a moment. Rosweiss, looking at him with a smirking smile, thinks to herself that the more one speaks, the more mistakes they make. It's better to wrap up the assessment quickly. Leon, suddenly looking at Rosweiss, asks if she likes the teddy bear he gave her. Rosweiss, hearing his words, is taken aback, her face flushing red. Internally, she thinks it's surprising that he would ask such a question, one completely unrelated to identity, position, or grudges. She finds that his thoughts always manage to surprise her. Flicking her hair behind her ear, still blushing slightly, she says that she likes it very much. Leon, hearing her response, smiles with satisfaction, saying that he understands and is fine with her answer. The vice principal, shaking hands with Leon, announces that the interview is now over. He informs them that the results of the assessment will be sent to Silver Dragon Castle via dragon letter in a few days, and thanks them once again for their cooperation. With the interview and Noah's test completed, they return to Silver Dragon Castle. A few days later, a little red dragon arrives with news from the academy. Muan, seeing the dragon enthusiastically calling out to Noah, exclaims that the dragon letter has arrived. Leon picks up the letter from the dragon and opens it, saying, "Let's have a look." As he opens the letter, it reads, "Dear Noah K. Melkvey, congratulations on passing the Academy's assessment. Please come to the Academy in 3 days to register and attend the entrance ceremony." The four of them, reading the letter, express their surprise and joy at Noah's acceptance. Muan, hugging Noah and rubbing her cheek against hers, says, "You're amazing, sis, and your parents are amazing too." Noah, looking at the admission letter, smiles for the first time in the entire manor. Rossweiss, glancing at Leon, thanks him. Leon, feeling proud, asks, "Why is she thanking me?" It's mainly up to Noah herself. "She's truly worthy of being my daughter." Rossweiss, winking as she leaves, says she'll make a big meal to celebrate today, and Leon can come help so people won't say he doesn't exist in this family. Leon, smirking, agrees, saying, "I find you very petty, always holding a grudge." So, this is the end of it. See you in the next chapter.